Okay, so now this is super interesting. So Hamel has come in clutch and provided us with a lot of juicy information from his massive 600 case break, right? So him and his team, just for reference, have opened roughly 6 tons of trash, right? Put that in perspective. And when I say trash, I'm just talking about the tokens and commons, right? Not the foils, whether or not they keep, full, how many X play sets of foils or anything like that, but just strictly commons and tokens. So 13 a pack, roughly, right? Again, variance because of the expansion slot coming in at, say, 0.25 ounces, which is where I've weighed them out to be, right? It might be, a little bit less, might be a little bit more. Anyway, the point is, that is crazy to me to think about, the fact that is that much waste, right? When you open that much fab, there is just so much absolutely worth nothing, in truth, right? Yeah, you might keep, maybe 100 playsets of each of commons, right? Even that seems absolutely absurd to me, but it's still going to be several tons of garbage that he has opened, of cardboard that has been waxed, right? Not talking packs, not talking the boxes, just strictly the cards. Almost 6 tons. It's mind-boggling. But other than that, we do have all this juicy information to break down and go through. And I think the important place to start is going to be the marvels. So we pulled 3 marvels, right? So if we go off of his pools and his rates, right? What that means is the set is currently sitting at around 80,000 boxes for its print run, right? Which is a lot smaller than what I would expect. Now, granted, that is only the boxes that service the English Golem pack, right? So we're talking any English boxes from Belgium or Japan, any Italian, Spanish, or German boxes. That's my understanding, right? When we go back and, look at pre-Fab 2.0, where things were getting up to, 300,000, 400,000, and then it was reined in, and we expected it to go to, probably 100,000, slowly be building back up to, say, 200,000. But for Mistveil, again, a very popular set, to be looking at around 80,000 is, yeah, interesting. Now, obviously, that isn't a guarantee, right? Just because Hamel has pulled 3 Enigma Marvels, New Moon Marvels, doesn't mean that, he got insanely lucky. I mean, he could go insanely unlucky, too. So 80,000, I think, is a nice ballpark for us to then go, well, it's probably not going to be 200,000, right? It's probably going to be somewhere from that 80,000 to 150, somewhere around that. But that is still, really impactful information to know when it comes to everything else in the set. Now, Marvels. So adult to young Marvels seem to almost be equivalent. So there's no sort of messing about with their pull rates, right? If anything, the young seem a little bit less frequent, but with this amount of variance, we probably just assume and say that they have similar pull rates, right? If you want a Marvel hero, they have been short printed in comparison to the other Marvels. I'm not going to say they're rarer. I think, in truth, I'm just going to say they're short printed. So while compiling the data, right, for a table to present at the end of this, the Marvels are not exactly what I said, right? So there is no disparity between Hero Marvels and Sacred Arts, right? If you look at the conjunction of adult and young, so their pull rates are almost identical. Hamel has pulled 105 Hero Marvels versus 102 Sacred Arts, meaning that there is no real discrepancy between the two. Where it comes down to is the specific pull rate for any specific Marvel, right? So to get a specific hero, there is, a 17.5% chance versus a 34% chance for a Sacred Art versus a 48% chance for a common Transcend Marvel, right? So the common Transcend Marvels definitely occupy the greater amount, right? Especially when you compare the fact that there's 8 to the 9 total between the Sacred Arts and the Heroes, but between the Heroes and the Sacred Arts, it is basically identical. And the way to phrase it would be to get any specific Hero Marvel is twice as rare as any specific Sacred Art, right? So for every one hero, there are 2 Sacred Arts, basically. But when it comes to the Sacred Arts and the common Transcend cards, I think this is a little bit misleading, right? Because there are 3 Sacred Arts to begin with versus the 8 common Transcend Marvels, meaning that this comparison isn't as accurate as it could be, right? Because you should divide this by 3 and you should divide this by 8 to understand which is truly more common, any specific card in that sense, right? Overall, you're going to pull more of the common Transcend cards because the pool is larger when it comes to the Marvels. So the other interesting thing that we can do is we can actually sort of see how Hammer's hits the actual tables. So if we were to compare it to actual pull rates from Mistveil. Where is everything sitting? So for the Marvels, right, they should be 1 in 100. Well, Hamill has pulled 598 in total from 57,600 packs, right? So that puts his effective pull rate at 1.03 per 100, meaning he's over the actual presented rates by LSS. Now, similarly, if we look at Rainbow Foil Legendaries, right? So I'm doing both boxes in conjunction because I'm not in particular about the print run or anything like that, whether it's Belgium or Japan, right? I'm not trying to find the odds of, clumping or anything like that in specific boxes. If you're interested, I give this a read, right? Because there's some other good information, but just the actual totality of the pulls and everything. So interestingly, for Rainbow Foil Legendaries, right, he's actually under. So his effective pull rate works out to be 0.79, right, every 96 packs versus, what's presented by LSS at 1 in 96. So technically he got less Rainbow Foils than he should have, as that margin is, very large, right, to be 20% off, right? So I would say he's going lucky in the sense that he's pulled some better stuff over the actual Rainbow Foil Legendaries, because when we then get back to gold packs, right, he's above board. He's at 1.09 out of every 480 packs, right? And LSS presented it as 1 in 480, so he's over in terms of gold packs. And then for the Cold Foil Legendaries, Rainbow Foil Fables, or Cold Foil Fables, the EAs and Cold Foil Majestics, we can actually theorize, right, what the effective pull rates are. So going off of, again, this sample, right, we have the Cold Foil Legendaries at 1 in 408 packs, or 1 in 4 cases, right? Then we have the Rainbow Foil Fable at 1 in 1,175 packs, or 1 in 12 cases, with the Cold Foil Fable, interestingly, now this is super interesting to me, being at 1 in 15 cases, right? There is a very minute difference between a Rainbow Foil and a Cold Foil, right? He has not pulled that many extra Rainbow Foils. Again, this is just a small sample size. If, again, that print run is 80,000, this is 600 out of that 80,000. But overall, that is still super interesting to me that, it is that close for the Fable, right? The Rainbow Foil isn't half that of the Cold Foil Fable. No, it's 12 cases to 15 cases, and that is, curiosity. Now, from heavy hitters, there was the whole idea that we thought the Rainbow Foil Fable was cut out because, again, to try and preserve prices. So this seems like an interesting trend where, again, it's a little bit more common, but it's still kind of rare, right? Then for the EA Rainbow Foil Majestics, we have 1 pull per every 976 packs, or 10 cases. So this means that the EA Rainbow Foil is pretty much the next rarest item after the Fables, right? So if you have any of them, I can only remember 2 of them, Manifestations and Levels, but I'm sure there's some other ones, right? Hold on to them, because they seem to be really, really rare, right? And then for Cold Foil Majestics, he pulled 1 every 251 packs, which means every 3 cases-ish, right? So 2.5 to 3 cases. So altogether, fairly interesting. Again, the fact that the Rainbow Foil Fable off of this, again, I want to really emphasize, off of this sample size, is kind of close, right? Only, 12 boxes difference per the Cold Foil Fable, so that's super interesting. Again, the Cold Foil Legendary, 1 in 4 cases, so being basically 4 times as rare as its Rainbow Foil counterparts, and the EAs being 1 in 10 cases to find one, right? That makes them incredibly rare in my eyes. And of course, overall, again, the Marvel Enigma, since 3 are pulled, right? We could say 1 in 200 cases, but no, I kind of want to chalk it up to being kind of lucky. It's still going to be close, again, to this pull rate. I think that's undisputable, right? But 80,000, it seems kind of low to me, right? Anyway, that is pretty much everything I wanted to pick apart from this. So overall, he did, sit close to the pull rates presented by LSS, with the only big outlier being his Rainbow Foil Legendaries, where again he's underwhelmed. Basically, he should have gotten an extra 121 Rainbow Foil Legendaries, right? Because he was just really off the pull rate presented by LSS, right? So that is a kind of a clear outlier, right? I don't know, maybe LSS were off by 1 pack here or there, or anything like that, and they just wanted to say 1 a case. Right, again, they're always stated to be the estimated odds, not the actual odds. But yeah, just that one's so far off the mark compared to again, his Marvels, his gold packs, everything else that we do know of. But I will put a table up, right, with Again, all the calculated, including the print run and the wastage, right? Because I think that it really needs to be exemplified, right? Because this is growing and growing. Again, we've talked about it a lot recently, but people are just either buying singles more and more, even more so than previous, and leaving, people like Hamill, like even just people who, open 10 cases at a time or something like that, to pick up the slack and supply the singles. And that is still generating a ton of waste. So much waste that no matter how much, paper packaging that gets pushed or used is never going to undo that impact. So yeah, I do think that is something worth highlighting, because I do think overall box structures need to change. They need to understand what the current drive is, and it's not holding boxes. It's not cracking one box here or there. It is mass or nothing, in all honesty. But hope you enjoyed. See ya. Okay, so quickly, just to break down the table, up top here we have the LSS known pull rates, then of course we have Hamill's actual pulls from his 600 cases, and then from that we can calculate the effective pull rates in packs, boxes, and of course cases. Underneath it, down here, we have marvels, right? So this is both in terms of what was pulled and their specific ratios, looking for any specific marvel, right? So for instance, there are 6 heroes versus 3 sacred arts, meaning that it's harder to find a specific hero versus a sacred. But then of course, between the adult and young, there is barely any difference. So given the sample size, we'll just say that they are actual equivalent, right? And the young hasn't been short printed in any manner, despite obviously the desirability of young and blitz. Oh, and the ×3 by the common transcend card should actually be a 4, right? I just looked at the first digit, right? I forgot to round. So of course that means that the common transcend cards are about 4 times as common as either the sacred arts or the hero marvels, or 2 times as more common when putting them in conjunction. And then down the bottom here, we have the pull rates for any rarity in cases. So for instance, a Rainbow Foil Legendary, 1 a case. Marvel, 1 a case. Cold Foil Majestics, 1 every 3 cases. And down the very bottom, we have the theoretical, specific card rates for any given rarity, right? So there are 5 legendaries in total, meaning that it will take you 1 in 5 cases to find a specific Rainbow Foil Legendary, or to find the whole set, theoretically, again. But I like using this as a comparative tool, right, when looking at, for instance, a pool of certain rarity cards versus something like the Fable, which only has 1 card in its rarity slot, right? So, for instance, the Rainbow Foil Legendaries are still equivalent to the Rainbow Foil New Moon in terms of finding a specific card. Or importantly, total print number, since again, there are 5 in the pool, they have the equivalent pull rate, meaning that for every specific Rainbow Foil Legendary, there are just as many copies as there are Rainbow Foil New Moons across the entire set. Just as there are the same number of specific Cold Foil Majestics as the Cold Foil Fable, which is even more interesting. But do keep in mind that, again, this is a small sample size, right? This is probably 2% of the total print run, if the print run is 125,000. So while this is a great starting point, it is not absolute, right? Things can shift up, things can shift down, but it is still a nice thing to think about, right? Because pulling specifically a long draw cold foil is almost the same as a cold foil Fable, and between the two, I would bank on the arms being a lot more playable. Oh, and of course, rounding has been used, but I've tried to lay out the table in the correct order, i.e. even though the Cold Foil Majestic and the Cold Foil Fable both show 15, it is easier to pull a Cold Foil Majestic than a Cold Foil Fable, right?